Today I want to talk about Marantz's Model M1 again, because once my initial review was done, Marantz quite reasonably asked for the review sample to be returned to them. And I said, no, not yet, because I still had more to say about it. Now, most of these extra thoughts revolve around a side-by-side comparison with another streaming amplifier from Marantz called the Stereo 70S.
This episode is brought to you by PSB loudspeakers, whose imagined T65 and T54 tower speakers deliver a spectacular listening experience.
Before we start today, how about some classic indie rock from Boise, Idaho? This is Keep It Like a Secret. I think it's Built to Spill's best known album. I think it's their fourth album from '99. And I got into it because it echoes quite heavily Neil Young and Crazy Horse. Now, this is the 1 LP repress from Music on Vinyl, and it's a superbly quiet pressing with, and I didn't know this until after I bought it, a bonus track called Forget Remember When that isn't on the CD or the streaming versions. Okay, so as we know, the Marantz Model M1 runs HEOS. And all HEOS devices received a firmware update this week that adds support for Deezer Hi-Fi inside the HEOS app. And more significantly, for me at least, and probably for you, support for Tidal Connect. Now, as we know, Tidal Connect behaves similarly to Spotify Connect. So we fire up the Tidal app, hit play on a song, an album, or a playlist, and then select the Model M1 from a drop-down list to have the smartphone or the tablet or the PC or the Mac hand off the stream to the Marantz Model M1 that's in the rack over there. And that Tidal Connect update has also been applied to Marantz's Stereo 70S. And it too is a streaming integrated amplifier like the Model M1, to which we just have to add passive loudspeakers. And you can see them, if I lean like that, you can see them both behind me just there. So after this week's HEOS update, both units now support HEOS, Spotify Connect, Apple AirPlay 2, and Tidal Connect. And Roon Ready is coming soon, and I'll talk more about that in a bit. But both amplifiers have a subwoofer output with internal bass management, although I think the M1's bass management is more sophisticated because it has independent high and low pass filters, and the Stereo 70S I think only has a low pass filter and no high pass filter for the mains, but I could be wrong about that. If I am, let me know in the comment section below. And both amplifiers have HDMI ARC, and both amps have Toslink inputs, and both amps have analog inputs, although the M1 digitizes its analog input, and I don't think the Stereo 70S does that. And the reason for this extensive side-by-side comparison is basically because both of these amplifiers have a retail price in Europe of €1,000. So they have a similar feature set, and they sell for similar money, and they're from the same manufacturer. Now, I would say that the Stereo 70S's outward appearance is more likely to appeal to old school audiophiles than people who have grown up with products from Apple and Samsung. So the 70S is a full width hi-fi component with physical control buttons on the front and a small front panel display, whilst the Model M1 is a shoebox amplifier with capacitive touch buttons on the front and a small LED light to let us know what kind of operational state it's in. Now, one of the big reasons why we see these physical differences between the two amps could be because of each amplifier's topology. So the Stereo 70S is what's called a Class AB design, whose power supply and transformer eats more internal real estate than the Model M1's direct digital amplifier circuit. So the M1 is what's known as a switching amplifier, and switching amps, they tend to be smaller, and they also tend to be more energy efficient than Class AB linear amps like the Stereo 70S. And these topological differences might be why our two Marantz amplifiers sound different to one another. But before we get to that, I want to address anyone about to ask me when Roon Ready is coming to Marantz's streaming products. Now, I know it's on the roadmap, and if I don't know the exact launch date, then obviously I cannot tell you when it's coming. But even if I do know the launch date, I will still behave as if I don't. Now, why is that? Well, in short, it's not my announcement to make. When both companies, so Roon and Marantz, have worked for months, maybe years on this project, who am I to short circuit their announcement? I mean, they've put all the money into it, they've put all the time into it, and I haven't. I mean, I could tell people what the release date is, but then again, it might get pushed back at the last minute due to software bugs that might cause an unsatisfactory user experience, and then I'll look like a complete plonker for getting the date wrong. So I know it's boring, I know it's dull, I know it's not very exciting, but we all have to wait for the official announcement. And I would like to thank Roon for sponsoring this video. Okay, so the audible differences between these two amps. I don't think that those differences are night and day. Neither do I think that one amp destroys the other one, because that is just silly talk. I think actually that these two amps differ in sound quality in the same way that two shades of the same color differ in appearance. So the 70S doesn't have the M1's top end extension, nor does it have its squeegee clean mid-range, nor its skinny jeaned bass. Yes, I just said skinny jeaned bass. If you don't know what that means, move along, we don't need to stress on it. Nor does the 70S have the Model M1's crisp layer separation. I think the 70S sounds more congealed because it lends instruments and sounds more weight, more substance, more muscle, more fat. And its uppermost treble is smoother than the M1, and I think its lower bass slightly looser. And I think the 70S will sound the more natural of the two to many pairs of ears. So if we summarize it in a way that I've used before, the 70S is an Edison bulb and the M1 is an LED bulb. Both light the room, they just do it in different ways. And generalizing even further, electronic music fans will likely prefer the Model M1's more skeletal sound, and indie rock fans, like those of Built to Spill, will probably go for the 70S's fleshier but less overtly detailed presentation. Now, looking to the other side of the amplifier, these audible differences also have implications for loudspeaker matching. So I think the M1 is a better fit for the musical Fidelity LS3 5A's richer tonality. And I think the 70S is better suited to the Acoustics 5050's zestier tweeter. You can see the 5050 behind me today. Okay. But we still need to consider the extras that the 70S brings to the table. So it has a decent, if not spectacular, headphone socket on the front panel. And it has two sets of binding posts for running two speaker zones. And it has multiple HDMI inputs, as we might expect from an AV receiver. And then, on top of that, it adds a coaxial input and an phono stage. And the M1 has none of these features. However, what I think really sets the 70S apart from the M1 is its ability to pipe now playing information to a connected TV. So this works for HEOS streams, for Spotify Connect streams, for AirPlay, for Roon over AirPlay, and of course, Tidal Connect. So there's no more squinting at a network streamer's smartphone-sized display from across the room. And this is useful because I know from the results of a recent community poll, almost 70% of you have a TV sitting between your loudspeakers. And just when you think that things can't get any better for the 70S, if you Google for it, you'll see that in Europe, you can get one for under 800 euros. I paid around 720 for mine, and I bought that from Hifi Klubben. But there's a catch here for some viewers, because the 70S is made in Vietnam. And to those who insist that build quality is better in Japan, you'll want the Model M1, because guess what? It's made in Japan. Anyway, those are some more thoughts for you to chew on regarding two excellent but quite different streaming amplifiers from Marantz, and I think those two amps will attract very different buyers. So not everybody is going to like the same amp. Me, I'll be keeping the Stereo 70S and returning the Model M1, mainly because I bought the 70S, and also because it pipes, now playing information to my TV. And I'll be talking about that again in a video in a few weeks' time. But if you like this video, please like and subscribe down below, and consider joining Patreon if you'd like to access 4 years of music playlists. And kindly drop a Model M1 or a Stereo 70S into the comments below to let us know which one you would choose if you could have one for free. And as always, thank you ever so much for watching. Nor does the 70S have the M1's crisp layer separation. I think it sounds more congealed because it... Nor does the 70S have the M1's crisp layer separation. And I think that's because... No. Nor does the 70S have the M1's crisp layer separation. I think the 70... Nor does the 70S have the M1's kind of crisp layer separation. I think it sounds more congealed because it lends... Oh God.